The caterhamracer.com Season 8 Championship is sponsored by Just Add Lightness, first for Caterham LED lights and in-car communication. By Design and Display Structures, immerse yourself in worlds beyond with bespoke projection screens. By DPR Motorsport, your competitive advantage. And one-to-one on-track coaching and simulator training with Ryan Hooker. We're also supported by Darren Burke, Performance Driver Coach, and FP0 Simulators. So, starting to get towards the business end now of Season 8 of the caterhamracer.com Championship. We're heading now into the second half of the season, closing in towards that championship battle at the finale at Spa. And it takes us to a circuit which I think personally is one where you can never have a dull Caterham race. And hopefully that will still be the case here tonight. This is the Donington Park National Circuit. We are back in the Academy cars tonight. So hopefully there should be some drivers which might favour this over the faster machines than others, and it might give us a slightly more jumbled up and mixed grid. Scott Woodward and Chris Hutchison back in the commentary box. Again, Chris, we do a full circle with the cars now. We've had one in each, one in the Academy, one in the 310R, and now one in the 420. Cycling back to the Academy cars, what do you anticipate is going to take place here in terms of, do we think any drivers are going to get back into this car feeling a bit more familiar than they were back at Silverstone? Or do you think it's going to be those who are the most adaptable are going to come to the top, and we'll see the usual suspects up there who are battling for the championship at the top of the points?
Good evening, everybody. I think what we are absolutely guaranteed is some incredibly close racing. The Academy car always gives us that. The speeds are slightly lower. They're very used to this car, and it always see incredibly close times. And in pre-qualifying, we saw, it was, I think the whole of this A grid, 18 drivers, were split by 0.6 of a second. So we can expect, certainly in qualifying, it's going to be about who can maximise and get that lap. Toe can be important around here, just like it is in real life. Even though it's not as powerful, it's still an important factor in getting those super quick times. So anything in the 22.5s is a great lap, and you can see that Max Haynes at the top of our kind of qualifying session. We've got 10 minutes of that to go, so not early on, but he's certainly got his foot down early. So close racing is what I anticipate, and maybe a jumbled up starting order, but we often see that sort of reshuffle itself, don't we, when the racing gets going?
Well, speaking of a reshuffle, I was anticipating Mr. Szaruta to get himself a little bit higher in the times than he was towards the bottom, and thankfully he has. He's now jumped up from what was 16th on his first couple of efforts up into a more respectable 4th, 2/10 off the fastest time set indeed by Max Hayes. 1 minute 22.5, but he's only 0.02 of a second quicker than David Rowe in his efforts. At the moment, it's Haynes on provisional pole, but there's still 8 3/4 minutes left to go. We see Paul Fernerhuff here launching over the curves over the chicane, and now up down the Wheatcroft straight back towards Redgate to complete another lap. That's 13th quickest so far. There's Guy Crawford, who is looking good so far in terms of his recent pace. Let's just remind you, whilst this qualifying session is going on, of where we've come from in the season and where we're going to. So, of course, the calendar follows the real Caterham Motorsport schedule for 2022. So we started off at Brands Hatch, which is where they began their full season. Then it's Snetterton, and then it's Silverstone GP, which they've just completed a couple of weekends gone. And now, of course, we're here at Donington Park because the Real Caterhams are going to be back out once again next weekend at the Donington Park National Circuit, where they're going to be sort of battling tooth and nail for victory in real life. Of course, we've still got then Anglesey to go in the Caterham 310R, back into the Caterham 420R for the Not Kill cars, and in real life they'll be going around the Not Kill circuit in both directions, because for those who don't know, Not Kill, I think, is the only circuit in the UK which is licensed to run in both directions. So for one day it'll be in the regular clockwise direction, and then in the next day it'll be the reverse anti-clockwise layout that they'll race in real life. And then for the finale, we do something very dangerous, which is let the drivers choose what car they want, and it's going to be for the season finale, another the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, which is going to be part of the Caterham sort of super finale weekend, where half of their contingent will be finishing their season over in Belgium, and the other half will be finishing theirs at Silverstone, the home of British Motorsport. Two iconic circuits to round off the 2022 season, which runs up the same as ours. Let's also give you a rundown of the points coming into tonight as well, because we've had 6 races so far, 4 of which have been won by Christian Szaruta. You can see here, this is the order based on main overall scores. And you can see that Christian Szaruta leads the way with 295 points, then followed by David Rowe on 281, Jamie Peters-Ennis on a good overall score of 247, Mitchell Costas 234, and John Lang 231. But if we then switch them towards the drop totals, we can see that Christian Szaruta actually does still lead with David Rowe second, but now the likes of Jensen Hasler and Paul Donkin and Andrew Parker now start to move up the order. So Jensen Hasler will be at 184 points, and that then you can see on the screen that Chris is so aptly adjusted. So you see just Jensen Hasler on drop scores, because this is now going to become a factor going into the second half of the season to figure out the final order. Jensen Hasler now currently third, and he's equal on points with Paul Donkin. And I think he currently does hold third because he has more second places. He has 2 more second places compared to Donkin's one of which he took last time out at Silverstone. Andy Parker 5th. He's only a point back from both Jensen Hasler and Paul Donkin. And Steve Arnell, John Lang and Jamie Peters-Ennis were tied for 7th place with 171 points. Richard Gallagher and Mitchell Costas. And we should also point out on drop scores too, only 4 points separate both Christian Szaruta and David Rowe. But of course, if they were to get equal points at the moment, it would be Christian on countback, because he's had more victories with 4 compared to, I think, just the 1, if not 2, for David Rowe. So on overall points, it's a little bit of a gap for Christian Szaruta. When we get to drop scores, it's much closer between the 2 DPR teammates, 4 points in it, and then a point separating the next 3 on drop scores, Hasler, Donkin and Parker. So that is going to make it... there's no Jensen Hasler here tonight as far as I can see, but we have got Paul Donkin and Andrew Parker. So, and also Christian Szaruta, David Rowe. So 4 of the top 5 here tonight, as well as the likes of Steve Arnell, John Lang, and I don't think we have... yes, we do have Jamie Peters-Ennis, as well as Richard Gallagher and Mitchell Costa. So all but Jensen Hasler from the top 10 in points currently on drop scores is here tonight, and that'll be crucial for everyone who's going to try and make up a couple more positions, because we know that now getting to the second half of the season is going to get to the chance where every single point counts, where any small slip up, yes, you can use it as a drop score, but you've got to rely on some of your worst results, and the worse your results are, the more difficult it can be to try and make ground out, because if your results are poor, you're not going to claw back very many points. Yeah, exactly that. And I think after race 1 we will be at the halfway point of the season, so whereas we kind of disregard drop scores to start with in the season, they do start now becoming important. And yeah, everyone is on a little bit of, even if Christian has a bad result, doesn't get a good finish tonight, suddenly everything changes pretty quickly, because we've already got drivers who are carrying bad point scores. And Jensen Hasler not being here tonight, that might move him out of that championship contention, because he already has got 2 drop scores to his name. So this is going to be, I think, the end of his championship charge, but we'll definitely see him involved in the battles. But I'm just watching Andrew Parker as we come down into the chicane. He's a lot further down than we might expect, 11th at the moment, as he clouts that sausage curb. You will see, to get a fast lap round here in the simulator, you do have to clout that inside sausage curb, but it's a real fine margin. Parker does improve in time, but doesn't improve in position, so he's still in that 11th. He's trying to get this toe, but we will also see if you cut it too fine, they'll get a penalty, and that penalty needs to be served before the start-finish line, which is, there's not obviously a lot of room, so that we will see K cars and occasionally really having to slow to the inside of the track to serve a penalty if they cut that margin too fine with track limits over that chicane. So if they do start pulling off to the side, it won't be because of a mechanical issue, it's because they might well have cut the chicane and it is a penalty that they're serving. We can see how competitive it is tonight in terms of lap time. I know that Donington Park does lend itself to be quite a superb circuit for Caterham racing, for those driving a Caterham around. So I can see that Christian Szaruta is currently just up on the best time of the session set by teammate David Rowe by about 12 thousandths of a second. But looking how competitive it is so far, I mean, look, the first 11 are covered by less than half a second. The entire 16 cars on this grid, as far as the 16 that have set times so far on the left-hand side, covered by a fraction over a second. So I anticipate at least the first few laps this is going to be quite a frantic scramble for positions, particularly towards the front when you've got the first 11 cars covered by less than half a second. That's going to be quite a charge and quite a bit of a, to use a term that's now used more widely in commentary, a bit of a schmozzle down towards Redgate corner, provided they can keep out of each other's way. But then again, as we both know in Caterham Racer, it doesn't take long for them to start bumping into each other, does it?
It doesn't. It really doesn't. It's. I love the word schmozzle. I'm going to try and use that now, Scott. Yes, it's. As we're just watching Steve Arnell over the line, see whether he can move up from his current 15th. But it doesn't. Given how close it is and the speeds, he does move up to 14th. So he moves Paul Ferninghoff down now into that 15th position. Given how close everything is, there's lack of speed, and as soon as at Donington you start going side by side into corners, you can't carry as much speed. Therefore, the whole chasing pack are able to keep up quite easily, and we will see, not this coming weekend, but the weekend after, when we're actually at Donington in the Caterhams, you'll see quite how close that racing does get. It's generally an epic one to come and view, and tickets are still available if you want to come and join us on the banks, and we'd love to see you there. And we will be live streaming all the races if you cannot make it to Donington.
That'll certainly be a spectacle, both if you're watching online and also in the circuit. And if you do get a chance to go trackside and watch these races, I urge you to do so, because either from watching this from trackside myself or from the circuit commentary box, Caterham races, particularly on a circuit like Donington, do not disappoint. I've hardly seen, maybe weather depending, usually in the dry conditions, I've never really seen what I would consider as a bad Caterham race in the dry. The wet, it can sometimes string things out a little bit, so sometimes the wet conditions can take away some of the racecraft, because drivers have to be more careful, they have to be more a lot more gentle and a lot more delicate with their steering movements, not to be able to spin off or hit a wet patch somewhere. Whereas in the dry, this is a circuit where it really does lend momentum all the way through the sweeping curves and undulations. It's a circuit where if you can keep the momentum up in a car like this, you really can get a good lap time out of it. So definitely want to watch out for. Again, if you can't make it, at least do check out the live streams, of course, because they will show you some fantastic action. We should have some fantastic action in store given the qualifying times, because thanks to Steve Arnell's improvement in his lap time, it now means that all 16 cars, at least as far as I can see, that have qualified so far, are covered by just under basically 9/10 of a second, so less than a second, covering as near as makes no difference the entire field. I mean, I'm not sure quite what prospect we're going to see here in the next few moments, Cheesy, when we get race number 1 underway. But I'm certain it's going to be quite a charge down towards Redgate for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an exciting sight to see all these cars. And like I said, they're so evenly matched that how are we going to split them? I have given them instructions to, make sure they remember all our standard rules about respect and contact out there. But it can get complicated with that many cars all trying to head for the same bit of tarmac. But we are out of time for qualifying, so it's a show us what you got now, or you'll have to go back in the pits. We are seeing some. Sharuta's gone up to 3rd, and Andrew Parker moved up to 7th, so we're still seeing some movement late on at the moment.
The trouble is, sim or real, these are race drivers, so get them to try and actively remember what someone says in a briefing. It's quite tricky when you've got Caterhams all around you heading down towards Redgate at high speed. So I think it's going to be quite. I think if some do remember it and are actually thinking about it, they're not concentrating hard enough, because they'll be thinking about all the cars and everything else that's around them. But hopefully it's a clean turn 1, and hopefully it's a clean lap or 2 going forwards. Whether I've put the commentator's curse on that, I'll have to wait and see. But the checker flag has come out on the session, and a familiar name on top of the times, and it is David Rowe who's taken the fastest time. Although that said, Christian Szaruta.
He just left the lobby, I think, just briefly. I think he's going to go and reset. But let's go back in. He should reappear back in that 3rd place. You could see him in the results. So let me bring that in for the kind of results of qualifying.
So there it is then. So David Rowe takes the important pole position alongside him. Very impressive time from Max Hayes, only 64 thousandths of a second away to line up on the front row of the grid. Then it is points leader Christian Szaruta, who will start from 3rd this time. No front row start for the man he leads with at least the standings at the moment. And alongside him is Paul Donkin, who is 4th on drop scores. Steve McMaster, could see him not only back on the grid, but also in good form, in 5th quickest on that side. So good to see him back towards the sharp end. We haven't seen that for a while. Alongside him is Blaine Cresswell, who is one of our recent newcomers, and a really solid effort to put him 6th on the grid. So watch out for him from row 3. Andrew Parker, who is usually around the front end usually, might be a bit disappointed with 7th, but then again, he's only looking at his time less than 3/10 off the front, and being 7th can be forgiven given how close it is. So being 7th should be something to watch out for. He can pick his way through. Likewise, Richard Gallagher. Those two should make some moves if they can pick their way through in the opening couple of laps and stay out of trouble. And then Mitchell Costers and Guy Crawford, again, another driver who definitely will not stay in 10th position, rounds off the top 10 starting in 10th. The top 10 covered by 0.364 of a second. That's how close it is. It remains that close for the 6th row of the grid. Ian Joyner and Tom McEwing, who is loving life in the real-life academy so far this season. I'd like to think using all of his racecraft he's learnt from driving these sim Caterhams and caterhamracer.com the last few seasons. Jamie Peters-Ennis starts 13th in car number 46. He's alongside Steve Arnell. We're a bit disappointed with 14th, but again, three quarters per second off pole. But that's because it's so close. I mean, if you look at the whole grid, that's just how close it really is. Then you've got Paul Fernerhuff and John Lang, and then if they start on the grid, which I suspect they probably might not, unfortunately, is Richard Harwood and Chris Skithercorn, if they are there, which means they'll have 18. If not, it'll just be the 16 cars that will line up on the grid with Fernerhuff along the back row.
Trying currently to get Richard Harwood in. He's a bit stuck. He got a bit in no man's land between the game, thinking he was still in the lobby, so he had a bit of a power cut. So hoping that he will be able to join us before the race starts, but if not, apologies for that, but we will still got these 16 drivers ready to put on a good race for us all.
So David Rowe back in familiar territory on pole on the left hand side. His is for those who might be watching for the first few times, need a refresher. David Rowe is the car on the left hand side on the front of the grid. He's the black and white car with the green piping. It's the all green car on the right hand side of Max Haynes. Then watch for the black, so the white, black and yellow Brawn GP Special, as I call it, as in Christian Zaruta's number 2 car, points leader on the left, just behind David Rowe, and then keep an eye out on the 4th place car just back there too, which is going to be one to watch out for. And also Steve McMaster's car in the GT40 Ken Miles type livery, which is the duck egg blue with the white striping and the red front wings. So the lights will come up on top of the screen. They'll come up one by one, all 6, and of course when they go out, race number 1 of 2 for 50 minutes of season 8 of caterhamracer.com. Round number 4, race 1 at Donington Park will get underway. There's not long now till the start, and I anticipate, whether there are nerves or not, then I'm sure they'll be waiting for this to get underway very, very shortly. And eyes will be focused on the lights once they get the signal to start building the revs and getting the clutch at the ready.
Who is going to get that start low? Is Rowe going to be able to get off? Rowe and Szaruta have been sharing all of these wins so far. Can they, from 1st and 3rd on the grid, can they do the same again? The lights are up, Scott.
Let's see then. Let's see what happens. The red light's going to come up one by one. Rowe on pole. His points rival to Szaruta back in 3rd. Watch for Max Haynes from the front row. Race 1 at Donington Park is all set to get underway. The lights go out, and they tear away from the grid down the Whitcroft Straight. One car stranded towards the back, hasn't got away. It might be the guy that was in trouble, but down towards turn 1 for the first time, and David Rowe sweeps across and takes the racing line. Szaruta wastes no time meanwhile going up the inside of Max Haynes, and up into 2nd place he goes, but David Rowe runs wide on the exit over the grass, and immediately that's going to put him under pressure from Christian Szaruta as they head down the Craner Curves for the first time. They sweep their way through, out of Hollywood, down through Craner Curves, and side by side behind, we've got Blaine Cresswell and Steve McMaster. McMaster is up the inside into the old hairpin as they plunge through and compress at the bottom of the apex. It is Rowe who leads then, still just under half a second ahead of Christian Szaruta. Max Haynes is staying in close attention, and he could be the real spanner in the works here. He's nowhere near the top 10 in points, but I think for him, that'd be the least of his worries. All he'll be looking for is a good finish from the first 2 races tonight. So far, literally touch wood, Chris, half a lap gone so far, a couple of cars running wide, but apart from that, dare I say it, but I might say it quietly, everyone's got to the first lap relatively cleanly and quietly.
Whisper it, because we have got the chicane, probably one of the most pinch points that we've got on this track. Got Rowe just trying to shake the toe already. Sharuta's got Max Haynes right on his tail, but he looks like willing to work with Szaruta at this early stage. As the rest pile in, we've got side by side there, Gallagher and Costas, I think that is. Up. Costas goes up the inside, moves up a place into the chicane. And Scott, I think we have got around lap 1. Hold the news.
We've still got laps 2 and everything else to go yet. It's not 30 and a half minutes, but joy to the world. Lap 1 has gone without a hitch, so to speak. But let's see how they get through Redgate in lap 2. There's a side-by-side pass between possibly Guy Crawford and John Lang towards the back. It looks like they've got through that just about okay. A little bit running wide over the curves, but no troubles. There's some side-by-side running sort of mid-pack as they come through. Top 4 starting to break away now. There's a big fight going on between Andrew Parker and Blaine Cresswell. And Parker's now managed to get past both Cresswell and McMaster. Behind them, there's all sorts going on. And then that next group has been headed by Tom McEwen, but you've also got Mitchell Costas, Ian Joyner, Guy Crawford, and Jamie Peters-Ennis, and then everyone else in that pack forming the second group, or the third group if you like, because the top 4 have already started to break away. So we've got a front 4 followed by a middle 3, and then we've got just about everyone else in that sort of group towards the rear of the field. And as they pull up through, McLean's up through Coppers for the second time. Rowe seems to have the measure of Szaruta. They seem fairly evenly matched on pace, but Max Haynes is the one who's looking pretty racy because he's all over the roll cage of Szaruta looking for a way through, but he seems pretty content at the moment, Chris, to stick with him in the racing line, stay in the slipstream, and to not make a move just yet until he feels it's the right time.
And I think that's probably a sensible choice at this point. You know, the 4 of them are moving away, and we've seen that plenty of times in this season, and that's been an irrecoverable gap in previous races. We go side by side through that chicane. It always makes me wince a little bit. But yeah, I think it's the right choice right now. The 3 of them are even breaking away from Paul Donkin. We saw him get a second place in the last time out at Silverstone. So he has got the pace and he's there, but he's just drifting off this front pack as we watch again the rest of this field fanning out. A little bit of a contact. John Lang then into Mitchell Costas, and I think that was Guy Crawford on the outside. 3 into 1 didn't go, and some of them in the gravel trap. They will be able to recover back into the race, but that was contact was going to happen 4 wide into there, wasn't it?
Well, it was a good one that lasted for 2 laps, but we had to get some contact. But everyone, of course, looks like they should be able to get going, if not quite further down towards the back. So that'll be misfortunate for those guys, but a little bit over-ambitious for one of them on the brakes. It looked like possibly John Lang was a bit too late on the brakes, and he sort of clashed into the side of Mitchell Costas, and because of that, I think Guy Crawford was just caught on the outside line and just was, to his misfortune, just got caught in an accident that had nothing to do with him at all. So fortunately, all 3 of them are a bit further now. They seem to have mostly got away with that. Richard Costas is back at 16th anyway, but John Lang is still in 12th and Guy Crawford's still 10th. So looks like the only one that really lost that, and that was Costas. As Max Haynes now, meanwhile, he is not quite. Well, that's cheeky. A bit of a bump draft on Tristan Szaruta. Now, I can see the thinking. But if he'd done that about, maybe 20 metres later, that could have been a whole different story, Chris.
Yeah, we've seen him doing that, and we have seen it in the past, and as long as the drivers are working together on it, it's fine. Like you say, it's a bit like the NASCAR, so, you know, when you're doing it down the straight, that's not such an issue. You can't do it in real life. It is one thing, simulator difference. The radiator's so far at the front of these Caterhams that, you can't do it in real life, but in this simulator world, we do see it, and we see David and Christian doing that as well, so it's not unusual, but we haven't seen it yet on the stream, and there was the first sort of instance of that, and that's Max just saying, yep, we can catch David, we can keep him in sight. But David's doing what he did at the sort of race 1 Silverstone. He's got that little tiny gapper, and he's really sort of making it a solid run for it.
Yeah, just a reminder for those who haven't watched these before. In these Caterhams, there is a time gap between 2 cars, where you start to gain a bit of a tow from the car in front, and the magic time gap that you want is under half a second, because that's when you start to get a tow from the car. Anything outside that, and there's no tow, as Tom McEwen gets very sideways. I don't think he quite wants to take that apex when he does that in real life, in any case. So he's getting the sideways action out through McLean's out of his system now, before he does the real thing in about a week and a half's time. But Tom currently sat in 9th place behind Richard Gallagher, and the likes of Gallagher and McEwen and Crawford, which we know for obvious reasons after the contact, bit further back than they'd like to be, but I think it's because A, the field is so close, and B, because of that, the competition is so high in this first race. And of course, if they can just bank some solid points and keep out of trouble for the most part, although as I say that, Richard Gallagher's bouncing over the curb, and either might have to serve a penalty for that or just back off, because he's had obviously missed a gear or so. Yeah, he backed off on that one because he had a penalty because he cut the chicane. So just to avoid that, he's lost out not just to where was he battling Tom McEwen, he's also lost another 3 places to Crawford, Peters-Ennis and Lang. If you go back on board with Paul Fernhoff here, scrapping away with Steve Arnell. He looks down the outside into Redgate to make the move, carries the speed all the way around the outside, but then finds himself all over the curves on the exit, and now it's Ian Joyner who steps past to put Fernhoff down to 15th place. So all action in the second half of the field.
Absolutely, it's faction all the way down this field, and the times being so close. We're also seeing Andrew Parker.
Zaruta's dropped down to 10th. What's happened there? So my only guess would be, not to put any blame on anything at all, but my only guess could possibly be, I make the assumption that
My guess is penalty.
Tangle with Haynes?
No, my guess is penalty around the chicane. I think he would have been another driver slowing up at the inside. We didn't see it on stream, but that's interesting for the championship, isn't it? One of a 5-time winner so far. So yeah, he's 4-time winner so far, but he's always been up on that podium. So he's got a long way to fight back. Not only through this race, given that we've got 8 minutes of this left, he's still also got to do it through the next race, because he's never going to make it back to the podium, surely.
But then again, this is Christian Szaruta, and stranger things and crazy things have happened with him behind the wheel of a virtual Caterham. So I wouldn't count him out yet until the checker flag flies. He has still got half the race to go. So, again, if there was no contact, and of course I apologise to Max Haynes for suggesting he did make some, because of course he was bump drafting quite a lot, so admittedly I put 2 and 2 together and thought there might have been contact, but hopefully there wasn't, and it was just a penalty on that side of things. So Rowe leads now. He's got about a 9/10 of a second gap to Max Haynes in second place. It now puts Paul Donkin into third onto the podium, ahead of Andrew Parker, and then Steve McMaster having a good comeback in 5th position so far. As for Christian, he's about half a second behind Jamie Peters-Ennis now for what would be 9th place if you can pick him off. And Paul Donkin, who has raced the 420R in real life, and also has done some racing at the wheel of a Honda in the VTEC Challenge before previously. It's getting quite sideways through the apex and McLean's, managed to gather it back up in proper Caterham style.
Do often see that kicking out the rear end there. It's if you don't give it enough juice on the down change with a bit of a heel toe, it can lock those rear wheels, and you do see it step out. But the Academy tyres designed as in the sim as they are in real life to be very manageable, and you can control that slide. It looks like Christian Szaruta has got an outside line on Jamie Peters-Ennis. Let's have a look at that as it goes down into the chicane. He's got the run on Peters-Ennis. It looks like Peters-Ennis is willing to sort of let him go and follow in his wheel tracks, and that's a really sensible head on him, because he knows that Christian's coming forward, and he will be able to sort of part the seas of the drivers in front to try and then make his way back forward. He was also running a little bit higher early on, so he's dropped back to 10th as well. So he's going to latch onto those coattails and use that to see whether he can make his way up.
A smart racecraft there from Jamie Peters-Ennis, who has been a bit of a silent assassin in some races, might start deeper down the field, but he usually likes to keep himself out of trouble, keep his nose clean, and pick his way through some of the carambolages around him to get himself into a position in the top half of the field. So he's not as high as maybe he would like to be. It looks like they're going side by side. Peters comes back at Szaruta now through into the old hairpin and gets back through. So I'm not quite sure if there was a mistake from Szaruta who's put him onto the grass somewhere. But Jamie Peters-Ennis gets a good run exiting Redgate on that original move, comes back at him through the crane of curves, and now they're side by side out through Starkeys and Schwantz, up back towards McLean's. It's the inside line for Szaruta, but still Peters-Ennis will not relinquish the position. Goes round the outside into McLean's and holds off the championship leader. This is great racecraft from Jamie Peters-Ennis, holding off the points leader, and he's entitled to do so. It's racing for position, regardless of where he is in the championship. He can race him as much as he wants, because this is for position, this is for genuine points.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's you're free to race anyone around you. It's tight as you like, though, isn't it? There are millimetres between these two drivers. There's absolutely nothing on the outside there. So Christian Szaruta has down the inside. He's positioned Jamie out wide, and he's got the run now down into Redgate, but he's still not broken that toe. And Jamie last time was in this position, and he got him back through as he went through down into the crane of curves.
John Lang's getting into this as well. He's just behind in the blue, purple and pink car as he come into the right-hander at Redgate. Oh, he's done the switchback on the exit of the corner. That's a beautiful switchback from Jamie Peters-Ennis. He catches Christian Szaruta out wide on the exit at Redgate. Through goes John Lang. Jamie Peters-Ennis sells the championship lead of the dummy, and he's through back into 9th place, and he's also caused Christian Szaruta to lose another place as well for Richard Gallagher. And I have to say, as John Lang goes firing back up the inside, can he get that one stopped? Maybe the answer is no, and of course he can't. He goes wide onto the grass all over the exit of the old hairpin and back down past Ennis and Szaruta and Gallagher he goes. But I have to say, that was a really crafty but very smart piece of racecraft from Peters-Ennis to kind of bait Szaruta to go deep into the corner. He's come back at him into McLean's here. But the key thing is here, Jamie Peters with possibly one of the passes of the season. That was very impressive indeed.
Yeah, and I like we saw that on the stream. He, like you say, exactly the right words. He baited him in. A little bit of contact there. That was always going to happen. He had the momentum through the corner. Luckily, Christian's car was not out of alignment. Therefore, he was able just to move on forward. So it looks like Gallagher's going to get in front of Peters-Ennis. In fact, Peters-Ennis has lost a bit of speed as a result of that. And John Lang is going to go back through side by side as we go into the chicane. It's tight as you like, millimetres between these cars. I was about to say it's starting to spread out, but you get these little bottlenecks, don't you, where they just all filter back together again.
Yeah, you can see that Peters-Ennis did lose a bit of momentum after that sort of small bump in the rear of Chris Zaruta's car. John Lang's car has disappeared.
That is what happens when you don't serve a penalty. So as soon as you go across the line, and if it's given you a penalty, you haven't served it, unfortunately, pings you back to the pits, and that's what it looks like has happened this time. Yeah,
so John Lang then essentially gets put straight back to the back of the grid, back to the field, after his mishap. It looks like we lost Richard Harwood at one point, so sadly he looks like he did try to get out, but of course he had that problem at the start on the grid, which I think prevented him from going any further than being roosted on the grid. And sadly, I think because of the fact that John Lang is now pretty much out of contention, unfortunately, John has decided to resign himself to the sidelines now, and is out of this race, which is a shame. He'll have to start race 2, effectively from the back of the grid. Still looking here at 5th position, Steve McMaster having quite a quiet but still competitive race in 5th place. He's just keeping tabs on Andrew Parker in front. He's about 0.3 of a second back from him, not quite getting a toe. We come down the back straight towards the Robert chicane now for another time. We've still got 2.25 minutes left on the clock. Sweep through right and then left over the sausage curbs. And out in front, we should check in the fact that David Rowe has a 1.3 second lead. Although that time round, Max Haynes was about 0.3 faster. So even though we're not suggesting Rowe is backing off here, Chris, maybe Max Haynes is starting to wake up a little bit in this second half of the race.
He's starting to get the stress going, won't he? He's seeing Max Haynes starting to close that gap, but he's had this sort of little reasonable gap throughout the race. Never comfortable, though. It's only one mistake worth of gap, isn't it? But the reason I was looking at McMaster is because he was coming across that gap to Parker, and Parker doesn't look like he's able to get across to Paul Donkin. So it's sort of settled itself down, but with 2 minutes to go, if any of these drivers make a mistake, then there's others waiting to get them. The rest of the field is kind of again, they're all in the same kind of situation. They've got a little bit of a gap, therefore they can take the normal racing lines, and therefore they can keep that maximum speed. And it's not until they start going side by side and tripping over each other, like we've been seeing in the following groups, that they actually then start, being bunching up and having those side by side, which seem to go on for like 3 or 4 corners at a time, don't they?
Yeah, that's the kind of racing that Donington Park lends itself to. One thing I should point out is that Christian Szaruta is not really catching. Well, he's not catching Cargill for full stop. He's 4 seconds back, and he's lost about 1/10 on this lap. And not only that, but he's also coming under big pressure at the moment from Richard Gallagher, as Peters-Ennis and Joyner are going to their own battle over 11th place after his sort of loss of momentum. And now you see here, this is a little bit further back. It's Peters-Ennis defending now from Joyner, and you see just behind them, you've got Arnell and Fernhoff and the recovering Mitchell Costas after he went off at the beginning of lap 3. Bump over the curve there, huge slide there from Ian Joyner. That puts Steve Arnell to his outside, and I'm not quite sure what Paul Fernhoff's doing. He's on all 4 wheels onto the grass. I think you'll find there's no gap there, Paul. Stop back in and find yourself another spot next time by. He's sweeping around. There's a bit of contact down towards the braking zone. Can they get it stopped into Redgate? The answer's no for Steve Arnell. He goes off into the gravel, but manages to claw it back together again. As for Fernhoff, he went wide over the curve, and that was a bit... in some cases, I don't want to point the finger too much, but it looked like that also started really by Paul Fernhoff trying to go for a gap down the pit straight when there really wasn't one.
Yeah, I think he had so much momentum out of that chicane where Ian Joyner went sideways that he didn't really know where to go with it. He tried for that outside line, it just disappeared, didn't it, on him? And but to his credit, he sort of just let that gap go and he sort of slotted back in behind, and it was just into the corner. There was a bit of Joyner and Arnell just had a little bit of a tap, and that just caused Arnell to lose that. This time it's Paul Fernhoff drifting around that McLean's corner in a spectacular way, but it doesn't seem to cost them too much time when they do it. But yeah, Arnell was a big loser in that, just drifting onto the gravel and losing that space and time. I think we're approaching the start sort of unnoticed to us, but David Rowe does cross the line and takes that win, takes the victory.
Does indeed. David Rowe takes victory in race 1. That's big championship points, of course, towards his campaign for the title. Second place for Max Haynes, excellent result for him to get some solid points on the board, and Paul Donkin will be very happy with a third place on the podium as well. It's Andrew Parker 4th, Steve McMaster rounds out the top 5. The rest of the pack comes through. Unfortunately for Christian Szaruta, he has to settle for 9th place, and I can guarantee you that is his worst score of the season, so I can absolutely guarantee you right now that is going to be immediately one of his drop scores that he will use, so he will drop these whatever points he gets for 9th position. And as the final few cars, we're just waiting for them to come across, which I think they already have. David Rowe, as we see, completes 11 laps and takes victory, and that is his 3rd of the season. He's now gone back-to-back after he won the 2nd race at Silverstone GP, so it means he's won 3 so far this season. He's the only man other than Christian Szaruta to have won a race in caterhamracer.com Season 8, and so he does so in quite fine style by about a second away from Max Haynes, so we'll be very happy with that point score from 2nd place. Paul Donkin, who was fourth in points. That will definitely help him to overhaul Jensen Hasler, which means he should, I think, on drop scores, move up into third place now. Andrew Parker, good to see him on form after climbing up from where he started on the grid up to fourth. Steve McMaster proving the pace he still got in fifth. A strong effort from Blaine Cresswell to see him finish in sixth place ahead of Tom McEwing in seventh. Then Guy Crawford and the big one, Christian Szaruta, we think with a penalty. We won't find out exactly what happened to him until after race 2 when we have a chat to our drivers. But ninth place for Christian Szaruta. He found it difficult at battling with the likes of Peters-Ennis and co. They did not make it easy for him to carve his way back through. And he only finished just ahead of Richard Gallagher by roughly about just under half a second. So tough time in that first race. He's going to pick his way through from ninth. He is definitely one to watch from mid-pack. 11th place for Jamie Peters-Ennis. Some really good racecraft against Szaruta and Cal on that side. So he'll be one to watch if he can again keep his nose out of trouble and pick his way through in the opening couple of laps if there is any drama. Ian Jordan 12th. Mitchell Costas, after he had that incident at Redgate Corner, recovers back to 13th. It's Paul Fernhouse, Steve Arnell, John Lang, and we lost Richard Harwood, sadly, as they just started the race on the grid. Looks like he was routed to the spot at the back of the grid and unfortunately couldn't get going, so he had to retire before his race even really got started. So, interesting times then for the two DPR men. It's contrasting fortunes. David Rowe taking the points that he needs to keep himself in championship contention. Meanwhile, as for Christian Szaruta, whether it was a penalty, whether it was any contact, either way, I think it's obviously, don't need Nostradamus to tell you this, but that's definitely not the result he was looking for. And he'll be on the slight back foot here, doing the hard work, picking his way through the order to get back towards David Rowe in race number 2. And the key thing is he's got to try and get himself from ninth onto the back, all the way to the back of David Rowe's car in pretty much no time at all. And given how competitive it is tonight, we can probably guarantee that won't be an easy task by any stretch of the imagination.
No, exactly that. That's the problem with having a race 1 is, you've got to get and recover your race 2 as well. And Donington is not easy to pass that, as we've already seen. It's hard to get that momentum and move up through. So, yes, he is in ninth currently, and this race will see whether this is a kind of written off race weekend or whether he can fight his way back. It's certainly an interesting championship development, that's for sure.
So, of course, the grid is for race 2 is set by the results of race 1, which means David Rowe is back on pole again. It's the same front row of Rowe on pole, and then Max Haynes on the front row alongside him. As for Christian Szaruta, of course, we need to talk about him. Ninth on the grid, back in row 5, right in the mid-pack. He's kind of in, unfortunately, prime territory to be really caught up at an instant if it starts to get a bit messy in the midfield off the start here, isn't he?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's we saw how compact and bunched it all was in those early laps. We've seen plenty of movement in early corners, and it can only take one little bit of contact, and you can bet that the other drivers are want to take David down early on because he really showed them all a clean pair of heels. So yeah, all those drivers in that midfield, they're all front runners. They are all podium takers in the past, and you know that they want to move early because they know how difficult it is to move a bit back later. I think it's going to be about who makes that mistake and who has a mistake made against them as to where we're going to end up here. And we saw some of that sideways action. If that happens early on in the mid-pack, it could get very confused very quickly.
We'll see if they can keep out of trouble as quickly as possible. Very impressive Max Haynes in that first race. He was all over the back of Christian Zaruta's car, and he kept David Rowe honest enough to make sure he didn't relax too much. And even though it was a gap about 1 second, at the same time, it was only a gap of 1 second. So Max making quite an impact here. I think it's one of the first time, if not the first time, that I've seen him on the grid. He might have been in one of the early ones, I think, but my memory escapes me on that side. But really good to see him up on the pace in relatively quick time, and to be up there challenging some of the guys who are already well established and have done several seasons of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And he, he's been doing the racing that we've been doing in between times. So we race some other stuff when we're not racing on live stream. And he's absolutely so versatile speed throughout, the rest of the types of cars we race as well. So I think he might become a kind of solid feature at the front of this grid.
Oh, let's hope so, because he seems to fit quite well. As we get set then for our second 15-minute race, let's see if Rowe can double up, if Szaruta can come back through for ninth, or if Max Payne can cause a surprise, or if anyone else can spoil the party and get to the front. Let's get racing again. Race 2 is underway. Nice clean getaway so far for everyone as they head down towards Redgate Corner. Now breathe in, everyone. Let's see if they can get through Redgate without too much drama. Zaruta's managed to sweep his way to the outside, then diving back to the inside already. As they go through, let's hold their breath a little bit. They've all got through relatively safely. Big thing, though, is David Rowe's been swamped. He's been passed by both Paul Donkin and Max Haynes. He's now down to third place. He's now boxed in by the two of them as they go side by side, almost 3 abreast down through the crane of curves. He's now going to be Donkin on the inside of Haynes in towards the old hairpin. Haynes sweeps back around the outside into the right hand down the hill, and he just about holds on and gets the lead. So Max Haynes then takes the lead round the outside of the old hairpin. David Rowe is in third position. As for Christian Szaruta, hasn't moved from ninth, but is boxed in towards the back of the top 10. It is all action on this first half lap.
Yeah, they really didn't want to let David get away that time, did they? And Max Haynes now in front, so can he show that clean pair of heels? David Rowe down the inside of Donkin. A little bit of an issue further back. Is that one of the cars, Christian Szaruta, dropping back there?
Yeah, Szaruta, he must have got caught up in the mid-pack, and we said this. He's in a prime position to get caught up in the mid-pack on the opening lap if something occurs. He's down to the back of the field in 17th place as they go 2 by 2 behind Max Haynes. So that Christian Szaruta is really on the back foot now towards the back. He's literally last and 17th at the moment. Has got all the work to do in his next 13.5 minutes to at least salvage something. This is maximum damage limitation now for Christian Szaruta. He's have to turn this on as we go 4 abreast down the pit straight for third place. That was never going to work out. That was going to be Donkin, McMaster, McEwen and Cresswell all going at it into Donkin, Parker, McEwen and McMaster all going at it into Redgate corner. There was a bit of bumping and banging between all 4 of them down towards Redgate. They've all get out just about unscathed. The man that's come out in front of all of them is Andrew Parker. Now you've got side by side McEwen on the outside on the black and green car. The grey car to the right hand side, there is Paul Donkin on the outside. McMaster is the duck egg blue kind of GT40 liveried car with the red front wings car number 1. As they come out of it now, Szaruta has quickly gone through it up to 15th. He's being Steve Arnell's had contact there. I think that looks like with Richard Harwood, I think possibly. But Christian's route up another spot to 14th and now 13th now past Arnell and Harwood. But also we've lost Ian Jordan and Mitchell Costas. Whatever happened to them, sadly, either they had a penalty or unfortunately had an incident that took them right out of contention and out of the race, sadly. So Zaruta's made up another 4 spots, but he's still way off the front runners. He's at the moment must be a few seconds away from this front pack, as we see Haynes has now been caught by Rowe. But not even the end of lap 2, and so much has happened that you could fill an entire race's worth of action in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Those front lead 2, though, after all that squabbling and 4 wide for that second position, or third position as it was at that time, has let the lead 2 get away. But what a spectacular bit of driving from those 4 cars to actually make it all through, pointing in the right direction. Like you called, there was a little tiny bit of context, and there still is. There was McEwen and Parker there side by side as they're going into Redgate. Still a little bit of, I guess it's an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. It's just 2 people saying I am here and you can't get through me, and we're still seeing that close racing as we head into this sort of third lap now, or second lap.
There's battles galore, the top 2 altogether, as Rowe is taking the lead from Max Haynes. They're still trying to go 3 abreast and towards the old hairpin, as we see there Donkin trying to force a move up the inside of McEwen. That now puts the tail up for Steve McMaster, because now he's got an opportunity to try and get round the outside if he can. They've gone through Starkeys, up at his fronts, and now the braking zone for this quite tricky corner, slightly late apex as you come across the curb of the right-hander of McLean's. They're trying to catch up with the top 2, as Rowe now is going on the ultra defensive on Max Haynes, who was all over the back of him as he was early on in race 1. As for Szaruta, he is in 13th place. He's inside the half a second gap now to give himself a move up into 12th place past Paul Ferdinand, who himself is battling with Guy Crawford, so that battling might help Christian, particularly down here towards the chicane, if he can keep out of trouble. We're on board with Paul Donkin here, as he's now looking at the back of the battle between Parker and McEwen for 3rd place. And we see also not a great exit there for Paul Donkin. He just bulks McMaster's exit a little bit now as he comes through. In the background, I'm looking for Christian Szaruta. He's getting pretty stuck in. He hasn't moved up from 13th place just yet, as now we see at the front, down the outside, looks Max Haynes. They're still going at it for 3rd, 4 of them for the final podium spot, still between these same 4 drivers. McEwen round the outside of Parker, runs out wide at Redgate. Parker gets back through. Donkin takes advantage. He now goes up the inside into Hollywood down to the crane curves. I think you need to take over for a second, Chris. I'm almost out of breath. This is incredible racing. What that for?
I know, I'm not surprised. And I was just about to say, McEwen is running the Academy for real this year, and he's doing extremely well out there with Matt Larby. Matt Larby is running on our B grid tonight. He was just missed out on getting us on the A grid. So those 2 in real life are there, nothing between them and in the championship and on our server as well. So great racing practice against some really seasoned veterans, and Donkin out there up the inside, and he's been racing for a long time, and Andrew Parker with us on the service. Everyone who's been watching us for a while knows how competitive Andrew Parker is, and Steve McMaster is just absolutely coming back to the front of the field. He's been away a bit, but he's inserted himself right back up at the front of the field.
It's the same we say a lot. It's like he's never been away, essentially. Okay, so I think something's happened in the background because I think Richard Gallagher's got involved and possibly also maybe Blaine Cresswell. There's Richard Gallagher going for a spin, so he's now down towards the back of the field. Blaine Cresswell was the other one involved. Christian Szaruta has got himself to 10th place now. So after all that, again, for some overtaking and a bit of luck in front of him, it's now worked out a little bit better. His next gaggle of cars is this trio. It's 3 wide, 2 deep, because you've now got Christian Szaruta watching with 3 cars in front go 3 abreast. The 3 cars in front of them are also going side by side by side. This is over 7th, 8th and 9th in front, and then 4th, 5th and 6th ahead of them. So all sorts going on. Now wide over the curve goes Szaruta. He's being passed by Richard Harwood. This is not good. This is not good evening of racing for the championship leader, is it?
It's really not. He's, luck, we sometimes say, goes his way, doesn't it? He seems to make his own luck. A little bit of contact there, McEwing to Andrew Parker's rear, and Steve McMaster's going to see whether he can get through up the inside of McEwing. McEwing's going to have to go around the outside now through Schwanson into McLean's at the top of the hill. He's got that inside line, but will he have any momentum to take out? It's Parker's looking for that switching underneath move, and is he going to make it by the time I get into Druids? I think he might just have to pull out of that one. McEwen's got that covered off. McMaster to now the outside of Parker. So McMaster's been sort of tailing this field, this little group, for a little while now. And Donkin, after all that battling, has managed to sort of spring free.
There's so much battling going on. The only person who's truly relaxing at the moment, to some extent, is Paul Donkin, because David Rowe's got Max Haynes all over him. Then there's a gap where Paul Donkin's in a bit of no man's land. He's 2 seconds away from the front 2, but he's also 2 seconds ahead of the scrap that's going on for 4th place downwards. As Haynes pulls out to the outside line, he's now making a move down towards Redgate Corner as they go across. Looks like Rowe squeezing into the outside line towards the racing lines, take the best possible line into the apex of Redgate. Gets the power on again on the exit. And now as Haynes stays close, tucked under the roll cage of David Rowe as they come down Hollywood and now through the crane of curves once more. Still half the race to go. Can you believe that? 7.5 minutes to go. 7.5 minutes run. All that. We've still got half the race still to run, Chris. It's incredible.
Definitely done a whole race's worth of commentary already, haven't we? So, yeah, as we're still seeing these groups for further back down the field, here is that Szaruta car, and in the middle of this, so Richard Harwood is in the blue car here we're looking at, and John Lang just in front of him looking up the inside of Guy Crawford. That is very tight round spots. You can't really get 2 cars around there, and there wasn't a lot of room to fit it, but they've managed to make it through. Again, these Academy car proving to give us some fantastic racing on this online service.
Christian Szaruta trying to capitalise on that mistake immediately. Now he finds himself literally stuck in the middle between, looks like that's close between Crawford and Lang. He manages to back off a little bit. Harwood's in there too. He's still trying to force the gap between the pair of them. And it's also going to try and close in. Now they are 3 abreast. Has he got the momentum to get past both of them and outbrake them all down towards the chicane? If you're the champion leader, this is not the place you want to be. He's very close to the right hand side of Crawford. Crawford's trying to back up the inside. Christian's trying to see them all off, and Lang goes round the outside of Christian, holds on to the position to 8th. There's a mistake there for, who's that, for Jamie Peters-Ennis. He's now dropped back and he's having to take a penalty after he cut across the chicane. He's now back down to 11th, make it 13th. He's dropped back there. That's another free pass for Christian Szaruta. He's now up to 8th. He's got past Crawford in that sequence. His next one is Lang, but Crawford is sticking to the rear of the roll cage of Zaruta's car like glue. And I'm not saying they're going to try and work together here, but if they can possibly try and edge forwards towards the next trio that's battling over position, I think maybe the highest Christian possibly can get to, if he can dispose of Lang quickly enough and then stay out of trouble from the 2 cars behind and then start to lap quick enough, potentially he get as high as 4th if, and that's a big if, Chris, if he can, or 2 things, if he can catch the 3 in front, and I think the second one is if he can get away from these 2 who are all over him up towards McLean's.
And even after all that hard work, if he manages to do that, I still don't think it's going to be enough for it to be not one of his drop scores, you know. So it is disaster recovery for our championship leader, but equally overall he's just, what he's doing is removing his sort of buffer zone that he's got in that championship. Always a little bit of contact there as John Lang taps his rear. That might actually help him gain a bit of momentum as they go out onto this back straight. So yeah, it's even if he gets back up to that kind of heights, and I don't think he will. I'm not sure. We've only 5 minutes left. I don't think he's got enough time. He got a slow car there. Crikey O'Reilly, that's tight as they go down that back straight. And we've got
Max Haynes, and there's contact into the chicane. Oh, I hate to say I can almost see that coming, and that is disaster. The worst possible disaster for Christian Szaruta. Yes, it's racing, but at the same time, it looks like Gallagher was a bit too ambitious. Maybe it's a racing incident. Maybe it's one for Chris and Co to look at that afterwards. But Christian Zaruta's night goes from bad to worse. He was at the back of the podium race at the end of lap 1. Now he's back down to 12th. And again, really suffering. This will definitely be a drop score. This has not been the night for the champion either at all.
He was starting to get into that position where he probably was doing, I've got nothing else to lose, I might as well push on, and everyone else is thinking similar thoughts as we look at now the battle for this third, fourth and fifth between McEwen, Parker and McMaster. It's currently McEwen just edging ahead, but Parker's got the inside as they go round McLean's. McEwen's got the momentum around the outside, but the person with the most momentum is still McMaster, and I wonder whether he's just waiting to see when his move is. Parker shoving it down the inside of Coppice again, as he can... These stresses and strains in the voice are exactly what you feel in the car as well, because your car is drifting out into the path of another, and you really do have to hope that everything works out well. Parker now right on the inside line. You will see this for real in real life. McEwen still on the outside line though. Had to give Parker room as he recovered back somewhere along that racing line, and it looks like it is going to be Parker crossing the line this time through with 3.5 minutes to go in that third place.
And Master found that so useful from McEwen down the inside from Parker. Quite useful, so he was able to keep in touch with these two cars in front, battling over the final podium place. And McEwen, I think, there tried to sweep straight across the apex of Redgate and realised that Parker was on his inside line and couldn't make it stick. He now runs wide and will get sideways in this contact with McMaster. I hate to say it, one of these drivers, yes, they might be not making it on purpose, but a bit more spatial awareness would be helpful here, because McMaster, I think McEwen, with all due respect to him, I think always knew McMaster was going to be there on the inside line to try and get past, but you maybe need to look across a bit earlier to kind of sense that someone's gone off the road. That's
Max Haynes.
That's gone off the road. So the podium finishes who previously were in the podium positions behind David Rowe. We don't know what happened to Max Haynes, but it looks like I'm suspecting something happened. That he lost it. Either always behind. There's more contact. That is Szaruta to get inside of Arnell. So more eventful shenanigans for Szaruta to get involved in. It really hasn't been a smooth race for him, and that's an understatement. So it looks like Donkin's made a mistake of his own off into the gravel. We saw, for whatever reason, Max Haynes going slow on the back straight here. So this now becomes second, third and fourth, basically for the podium places. One of these three drivers will have to resign himself to not be on the podium. Which of them it's going to be, I've absolutely no idea, as that David Rowe is away and gone. He's spread eagled the field at 6.2 seconds. It is this main battle now that's turned into the battle for the rest of the podium places. One of these three men will be disappointed with fourth. The other two will get onto the roster in race 2. Who it's going to be, I've no idea with 2.25 minutes to go, Chris.
No, I got overexcited, didn't I? I forgot that we saw Max Haynes already slow down the inside of that back straight, but it certainly solidified that mistake. And then, Donkin then. Whatever happened to Donkin, that's throwing away what was a fairly solid second place, and he finds himself in 6th place with only fast people ahead, so he's got to do it all again, and he's only got 2 minutes to do it, so that's not going to happen. But that battle, as intense as it was for 3rd place. Heck, it's now for 2nd. What's going to happen now?
One thing else I should point out as well, Richard Harwood, P5, where on earth did that come from?
Yeah, he is a quick driver, but in qualifying he wasn't up there, was he? So he's just managed to come back through that field where everyone else is losing their head, and I think he's just kept his. He's certainly one of those kind of drivers. Normally I'd say Arnell is in that same, but he's been a bit manoeuvred around, hasn't he? And him and Peel Fulvaniver are finding themselves in 14th, 15th this time through. We're seeing Max Haynes just coming back through the field a little bit, overtaking here Blaine Creswell, just up into Druid as... I've forgotten the name of the corner, but up here at the top end, the Coppice into the top end of the centre. So he's recovering back through a little bit, but we are coming now down to start our last lap. David Rowe is clear and gone with 6 seconds, but who is going to get second? Parker coming across the line, but we got McEwen with the run as they come into Redgate.
If you haven't pulled the pin now, it's now or never this time on the last lap, and it's side by side for second. Parker on the inside, McEwen on the outside. McMaster has the watching brief. McEwen thinks, right, I can try and go around the outside. I've tried it several times and been run out wide. Can I make it stick this time? The answer is no. You can try and carry the momentum and get the side draft down through Hollywood. He tucks it under the roll cage. But Parker gives him a tiny little tap in the rear just to remind him, I'm still here, haven't disappeared through the crater curves, but that's the worst place you want to try and tap somebody in the rear, particularly in a Caterham race. Into the old hairpin, they swing through the right hand at the bottom of the hill as one. Parker, McEwen and McMaster. One thing I should also note, Christian Szaruta still back down to 13th now. He's lost out even more places behind Jamie Peters-Ennis. He's really had a night to forget here tonight. That will certainly hurt his championship, but of course have to drop both these scores, have to try and keep out of trouble for the rest of the season. That was McEwen going round the outside and holding on to second place. He's taken it from Parker, and McMaster has the advantage up towards Coppice on the outside line. Will he get the undercut now to turn his way onto the back straight towards the Robert chicane for the final time, with a chance of stealing a podium from Parker underneath Parker's nose? Down the hill they go towards the final chicane. Speaking of which, leader 7.2 seconds clear. What a night it's been for David Rowe. He heads into the final chicane for the last time. We almost can't keep our eyes off his battle for second place. Here comes Dave. We'll look at that in the second place. But what a night for him. Whilst Szaruta has the worst luck of his season so far, it is bad luck. That's for second place. McMaster comes through. Where is Parker and McEwen? They both come together. Harbour comes up to third. Donkin fourth. They both come together at the chicane. There goes Andrew Parker. So McMaster gets second. Richard Harwood from the back of the grid gets third. That's an incredible drive. Talk about keeping out of trouble. Incredible drive from Richard Harwood. He'll be delighted with that. He'll be beside himself. Paul Donkin recovers after his mistake at fourth. They're crashing at the end towards Redgate. Goodness me, it's too much to call in that final section there. And through all of it, Christian Szaruta finishes 13th. That is one of the craziest caterhamracer.com races, genuinely, I've ever seen since we started, Chris. And that's not an understatement.
No, that really was a last lap, last corner.
Try and dissect that one, because I can't.
I have no idea how you call that. Richard Harwood not able to join us in that first race properly because of connection issues and comes from the back of the field to finish on that third place. That's unbelievable. And we obviously didn't see that we had to go watch David cross that line, didn't we? And just as we saw McMaster coming out there in second place and just don't know what happened to that following pack. So we will try and get that fed back through to us and get a feel for what happened there. But there'll be some soreness there, I'm sure, over it. But let's get a confirmation of that result.
Well, the result doesn't tell the whole story, but let's just run it through anyway. So the only normal part in that race, out of all of it, ironically, was the man who won the race, and it was David Rowe, 7.5 seconds. But behind that, far from ordinary. Steve McMaster on his comeback night. We haven't seen him for a while. Bang, straight in second place to all of that. Richard Harwood, who had problems in the race one, had to retire from the back of the field. He then came through, kept his nose clean, and somehow, I'm sure even don't know if he knows how, got himself a podium finish. Really good effort from Richard. That's the benefit of keeping your nose clean. That was really beneficial. Paul Donkin went off at the old hairpin. He managed to hold on and pick up fourth place. Guy Crawford was caught up in some incidents. At one point, he still managed to survive for fifth position. It's then sixth for Andrew Parker. And we can only, this is only speculation. We'll leave it to the stewards to look at the results, replays post-race from the footage of the other drivers. My suspicion is potentially it was just a simple piece of contact, possibly between Parker and McEwen, going for the same piece of tarmac into the chicane. Because that's just a thought. We'll let the stewards take a look at that and definitively decide if there was any fault, if it was one or the other. But anyway, Parker 6th, Gallagher 7th, and he was caught in some incidents to himself. Blaine Cresswell gets a rather quiet 8th. Then John Lang and Tom McEwen, who's in that battle for the podium, rounds out the top 10. Then we look to 11th place of Max Haynes. He slowed on the back straight before and also had problems of his own. He dropped back to 11th. Jamie Peters-Ennis 12th. And then Christian Szaruta, 13th, after getting caught up an instant after instant. He had an issue on the first lap where he got down towards last, got caught up at the chicane, more incidents, more cars around him. They raced him pretty hard, as they're entitled to do, but that is a night, I'm sure, probably one of his, I think arguably his worst night in caterhamracer.com history, never mind the season. 13th place. And I think he will guarantee himself he'll have to use this as drop scores unless he has a double DNF, in which case he'll have to count these results towards the final points tally. And if he has to do, that could be very crucial for the championship, watching out for that one. And Steve Arnell in 14th place, Paul Fernher 15th, Ian Joyner 16th, and Mitchell Costas we lost, and sadly Chris Skillicorn didn't race with us at all tonight after he's had his own problems, so only 2 cars retired from that race. I can only sum that particular night's of racing, particularly in that second race, in one word, and that's just simply wow.
I'd also add crazy. That
second race characterised the whole night's racing. I think Jamie, that is one of the craziest and most memorable races I think I've ever seen in caterhamracer.com since we started. And again, it lends to the thing I said at the beginning. I've never seen a dull Caterham race at Donington. That race, second race, backed it up all the way.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, crazy would be my word of choice. And yeah, the order they went through on the second last lap was definitely not the order they crossed that line. Only David Rowe had that solid sort of position out there, out clear and free of everybody, really, wasn't he? So what a great evening for him as we're just looking down the pit lane here as the carnage is settled. I'm sure there'll be some, toing and froing, figuring out what's gone on, and maybe we do have incident review just like we would in real life. So the stewards can intervene and they can issue penalties depending on what's gone on. But we have various rules in place around that. But yeah, what an interesting group of results, and that'll be throwing the spanner amongst the pigeons as far as the championship order as well.
Well, I suspect, Chris, rather than talking to 2 or 3 people, you're going to have about half the field to talk to at this rate with everything that happened in that second race in particular. So there's going to be, I think, genuinely a lot of people to talk to for various reasons. I think of championship contenders, race winners, those that got caught up in the lead battles, all sorts. So I think we might be here for a while, Chris. So
let's see who
we best settle in. So let's see who we got first to see what they thought about that night in particular, that unbelievable second race.
Yeah, let's start with our kind of podium finishes. And Paul Donkin, have you got us in the commentary box? Hello, Paul. Have you got us?
Hi, sorry, yeah, just now, sorry.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, we're going to figure out what happened in that second race in a second. Hopefully you can fill us in on that last corner. But the first race first, you managed to sort of, move forward a little bit from your quali position. But, you were still qualifying well up there and took that podium.
Yeah, I think much like in real life, if you qualify up the front, you're kind of out of the danger zone, so to speak. So if you get top 5, kind of get away with that front pack, you're kind of clear. So you just got to kind of not crash, and then you should get a decent result. So race 1, I managed to do that. Race 2, not so.
So you lost out, was it at McLean's or somewhere? Where did you lose out in that race 1? Sorry,
down
race
the
2.
hill. Race 2, down the hill, Old Hairpin. I was just chasing Dave, kind of keeping the gap, 0.7, 0.8, but he did have very, very strong pace. Then I went from 4th to 3rd, but I didn't give it enough blip on the downshift to lock the rears, and that was me gone.
Yeah, we saw a number of drivers doing that. So that was you out that battle then. And you're still, with all the last lap shenanigans, still recovering to 4th place, I think, over the line. So that's still not a bad second result considering where you were.
Yeah, I think I managed to recover to P6, which I thought was kind of fair considering I did a full spin. But then 2 guys came together in the last turn. So yeah, salvage P4 out of that. Quite happy, to be honest.
Yeah, great stuff. All right, well, we'll see you at the next one, and well done tonight.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to get Max Haynes in if he's around. I can't see him, in fact, on the in the comms, but so I can't talk to Matt Haynes, find out what happened to him, but I'll look in the text chat and see whether we get any information. Let's try and get let's see whether we can get Parker in here to figure out what happened on that last corner of that second race. Hello, Andrew.
Good evening, chaps.
So we're just we're trying to fill in what happened. You've obviously been involved in that lead lap battle for the whole sort of race 1, and then in race 2, we had to watch Dave cross the line, but you disappeared off with a number of other drivers. So what happened from your point of view?
Right. Well, exciting. So Tom did an amazing overtake into the second to last bend, and then I had a good toe on him on the back straight and sold him a dummy and shoved it up the inside. As we crashed before the apex, I'm going to say I definitely would have made the apex, but he didn't give me quite as much room as I was hoping for. But up until that, it was pretty good stuff.
It was an amazing battle. When we saw McMaster coming out in front, we said he was probably biding his time, and it looks like that had paid off for him. So an unfortunate end there. No doubt I'll hear something about it in the week to come, but not a bad night's racing, even if the results perhaps weren't what you wanted.
No, I'm happy with that. I wasn't quite as fast as the top chaps today. The first race seemed to be a bit of a Formula One style procession, but the second race was much more exciting.
Great stuff. So we will see you at the next one.
All right, cheers, chaps. Good night.
Okay, let's speak to Mr. Harwood. We haven't spoken to Mr. Harwood. Richard, have you got us in the commentary box?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So, whilst we couldn't quite get your connection to sort itself out before race 1 proper, what a race 2.
Well, I certainly observed a lot of carnage. She started at the back for race 2, finished 3rd, I think.
Yep.
But I don't think I overtook a single person who wasn't going off track, sideways, backwards. I just kind of stayed out of trouble, and everyone else died.
Lady Luck was on your side as you went through the field then. Sometimes it's easy like that, doesn't it? But nevertheless, a podium comes out of that one for keeping your nose clean.
I know, so hopefully balances out, because I think pace-wise I was probably mid-pack. Just missed the fun of race 1, but top and obviously 3rd in race 2 and last in race 1. So sort of probably get about the same amount of points as I deserve based on pace.
That's a very pragmatic way to look at it, and well done on your first podium, and we look forward to seeing you next one.
No worries. Thanks, Cheesy.
Great stuff. Yeah, well, sometimes you get the run of the luck. So, We haven't spoken to a McMaster yet, and he looks like he is available. So let's see if we can get him here. Mr. McMaster, have you got us in the comms box?
Hello. Yes, indeed. Hello,
Long
chap.
time no chat.
Hello.
And we get to chat to you because you got that second place right at the last corner there.
That was epic until it wasn't.
I mean, we've just heard from Parker that there was a little bit of him and McEwing did take each other out, but I guess you were just watching that all happen in front of you and sail through the middle of it.
Yeah, it was inevitable from that too. That was going to happen. There was no question about it. So yeah, it was just one of those where you sitting behind. I thought a couple of times, should I go for it? Should I try? And then no was the short answer.
Yeah, we saw that decision-making process as your nose cone got close and then retracted itself again. Yeah, quite sensibly, as it turns out.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, well, let's see what happens into the last corner. I even backed off. I literally backed off halfway down the straight. And yeah, that was it. Straight into second. Blimey.
Brilliant.
Great driving by the other guys, though. Fantastic.
It was fantastic to watch. And a fifth place in race one. So pretty successful evening all round, really, considering how competitive that field was.
Yeah, I couldn't believe the pre-quali and the quali times, how close it was. It great driving by everyone on the grid and grid B as well, actually.
Yeah, indeed.
But yeah, no, super good fun to just to jump in and actually be competitive in the academy car, which I hear.
Yes, exactly. It's not the 420, but nevertheless showing some good pace there around. So well done. Good to see you back, and look forward to more of the same next time out.
Cheers, chaps. Take care.
Yeah, some happy races. So the only person we haven't really spoken to properly is David. So I guess we should take our double race winner and see whether Dave. Oh, I've taken the wrong person. I meant to bring David in, but I've brought Christian in, and it's always fun to have them both in here. So David and Christian, you are both on comms, which is never a good idea. But I'm going to start with. I'll start with Christian. If you've got us, Christian. He's maybe on a vow of silence. Christian, you've got us.
Come on, Christian. Come on.
All right, we're going to leave him to maybe have sulk and lick his wounds.
He's licking his wounds a bit.
Yeah. So let's Rowe double win. Yes. Double win. What an evening!
Amazing. You could tell that Christian's smugness level was at -10, I think, and I think he's as you say, he's got no words.
Well, I mean, it's not often that he's got words, but there we go. We've managed it.
Yeah, it was one of those races that obviously you're out quite in front by quite a bit. That second race in particular, when we say it kicked off behind, I think that's the understatement of the season. I think that's when you need to go back and watch yourself, because whilst you're up by 6-7 seconds, quite literally everything happened behind, basically, and that's the reason why.
Brilliant! I will have to watch that. But I was having a good race with Max Haynes. I think a new recruit to the caterhamracer.com, and he was driving really well, very clean, very fast. I think he got a cut penalty or something.
Yeah, we saw him having to get out of it down the back straight. So yeah, it was a real shame that kind of faded, because I'm sure he was making you sweat and stress in that first race, because he never went away, did he?
No, not at all. Well, in the first race, to be fair, I was quite happy that Tristan was kind of having someone to distract him for a bit, so yeah. I was quite happy. But then in the second race, I thought, I'm not going to get away. He's in the slipstream, and we were just slowing each other up. I was kind of trying to wait for Paul to come up behind us, and I thought that would be interesting. But really, my sights were just on the leaderboard, looking at Christian dropping down and down and down. And
that is now 4 wins apiece for you both, and it's just going to be about these, who got the drops, and he's going to have to use 2 of them now. That puts you surely as championship favourite at this point.
Well, really?
I'm going to just say it to put you under pressure.
So onward to, where are we? Anglesey?
I think it's Anglesey next. Yes, so yeah, we'll have to get that practice underway. But for you and me, it's to Donington for real, and not this weekend, but the next weekend after that, to see how we can get on with that.
Absolutely, Donington for real. We're looking forward to that. We're all ready to go. I think we're heading up on the Wednesday next week, and we'll look forward to seeing you there as well.
Indeedy. Thanks, Dave, and we'll speak to you soon.
Cheers. Bye.
There you go, Scott. An end to a mad evening.
Yeah, definitely, and I think hopefully I think we definitely meant it when we said that whilst David Rowe won that second race, quite literally everything happened behind him, which is why he had that 7-second gap. And I think when he watches it, he'll have full understanding of why he won by 7 seconds. But yeah, that was an evening where it was quite literally a night and day contrast of fortunes between the two championship contenders. It was the best possible evening for David Rowe. He took pole position. He led practically almost every single lap, and I presume he took fastest lap in both races, and he took both race wins. For Szaruta, that genuinely, I think I don't blame him for being speechless, because that's a night that I'm sure that not only is may or may not prove crucial for the championship, but also one that he would certainly like to forget and not be reminded of for the rest of the season. So he knows now, but he's now got essentially 2 scores he has to drop. And I think for him now, Chris, it's going to be a case of pretty much, it's an obvious thing to say, but he cannot afford an evening like that again, because otherwise that will be him further kissing his championship chances goodbye, and it all playing light firmly into David Rowe's lap to possibly go on and take the title. It's crunch time now in the second half of the season for him.
It removes all the padding, doesn't it? So everything is crucial from now on. And yeah, David Rowe still has a bit of padding. He has had one bad result that he's already dropping, but nevertheless not as far down the field as Christian went tonight. So, yep. A very exciting end to the season. We are now over that halfway point, so we are starting to make our way through into the tail end of the season. And just a reminder of the upcoming season, as we've completed Silverstone a couple of weeks ago for real, but we are heading to Donington Park on the 9th and 10th of July.
And of course, as tonight proved, as I've seen in the past before, I'll say it again, Donington hardly, if not never, ever produces a bad Caterham race. So with the full roster, from Academy all the way through to 7 UK competing on the national circuit, that's going to be another great spectacle, of course. I'm actually looking forward to that. I'll be there myself as well on the ground doing social media side, and that's going to be quite fun watching Caterham at Donington Park. It's one of my favourite combinations, and I'm certain it's going to be an absolute thrill ride from start to finish, of course. And the rest of the season, you can see for real life for Caterham Motorsport. Of course, we've got Anglesey by the Welsh coast. I was there recently for the C1 into the night race, and a few other championships that were racing there. And it is one of the most beautiful and picturesque circuits, not just in the UK, but I think at least in Europe. It's a beautiful, beautiful circuit. Of course, September for the super header, as we said. 1 day racing in the traditional clockwise regular direction, and then 1 day's racing in the opposite anti-clockwise reverse layout. And then they got the super finale where we've got Spa-Francorchamps there for a few of the championships, and the others will be on the same weekend racing at Silverstone. So quite literally, if they're not all decided before then, in essence, potentially all 6, including both Caterham Academy ones, all 6 Caterham championships could be decided between 2 different venues on the same weekend, provided someone hasn't run away with it already. There's the schedule for Season 8. So, of course, we usually run them, of course, the Tuesday of the week before the next upcoming real-life Caterham weekend. So, of course, we finished Donington Park. We've gone past the halfway distance now. Brands at Snetterton, at Silverstone and Donington Park are now in the books. We've now got Anglesey, Knockhill and Spa to go. And, of course, Spa will be the driver vote, where they get to choose which of the 3 specs of car they get to use in that finale, either Academy 310R or 420R. And that's coming up on the 4th of October to crown our Season 8 champion. And I think, Chris, tonight, possibly our championship contenders, maybe both David Rowe and Christian Szaruta, might well look back at this evening's racing at the end of the season, regardless of who comes out on top, and think, for either of them, depending on their fortunes, whether it was Christian's bad luck or David Rowe's good fortune, this was a night that potentially could, in either case, they'll be saying to themselves, this is a night that could have either won or lost with the championship right there. This could possibly be the most important race weekend of the season so far, and potentially the whole season, provided the other 3 don't throw up any more surprises.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you on that one. There are often moments that are crucial to championship contenders, and that lack of back-away plan, or just no padding at all, no safety margin, is definitely going to be important. So just over a month then till that next one at Anglesey for us at caterhamracer.com, but we're definitely looking forward to that.
Indeed. And of course, as we sign off for another evening's race at caterhamracer.com, just a quick reminder, of course, that the caterhamracer.com Season 8 Championship is very graciously sponsored by Just and Lightness. First, for Caterham LED lights and in-car communications. By Design Display Structures, immerse yourself in worlds beyond with bespoke projection screens. By DPR Motorsport, your competitive advantage. And by one-to-one on-track coaching and simulator training with Ryan Hooker. We're supported by also by Darren Burt, Performance Driver Coach, and also by FP0 Simulators. I will also sign off and say just one more small thing as well, which is a very small congratulations to not just Darren Burt, but also to Jeff Newman, who's racing in the Caterham Motorsports this year. Both of them raced at the BRSCC Supersport Endurance Cup race this past Sunday in Jeff Newman's Caterham 310R. And not only did they take pole position, they practically led every single lap and took victory overall and in their class by about 4, if not 6 laps. So they were pretty much dominant. And so they do come back again. They'll be the ones to beat. So congratulations to them. We'll definitely see Jeff and everyone else back out at Donington Park next weekend. Hopefully you'll be there too. If you can't make it in person, which if you can, by all means go. Do be sure to check out the Caterham Cars YouTube channel, subscribe to that and hit notifications, which means that you'll be notified whenever they go live. They'll also be live on the BRCC channel as well for those Caterham races, so be sure to subscribe to that if you want to as well. And of course, subscribe here to caterhamracer.com when the next rounds, of course, that will be coming up when we head to the Welsh coast and the beautiful Anglesey Circuit on International. So the big question is this the night that possibly wins David Ware the championship, or is this the night we look back and think that Christian Szaruta lost it here at Donington Park? We'll find out, I'm sure, in a few months' time. But until then, we'll let you mull over that. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
See you later.